our participants joining us from from the Maldives and around the world. On behalf of the National Archives of Maldives, I warmly welcome you to this special virtual Q&A session held as part of International Archives Week 2025. Under the global theme, Archives are accessible, archives for everyone. My name is Amrit Shiuna, and I served as a senior archivist at the National Archives of Maldives. I'll be your host for this 1 hour session today. This year's theme invites archives around the world to reflect on the ways we ensure accessibility, inclusion, and engagement with our collections. In the Maldives, we are proud to contribute to this dialogue with a focus on the intersection of digital preservation, access, and climate resilience. Our session is titled Preserving Paradise: Digital Archives Access and Climate Resilience in the Maldives. Over the next 1 hour, we will explore the urgency of preserving our vulnerable heritage, our National Digital Archive initiative, and the challenges we face, and the importance of making archives digitally accessible to all communities, including future generations. We have also reserved around 10 minutes at the end of the and for audience questions, we will welcome your active participation. Before we begin, just a few quick housekeeping notes. This session is being recorded. You are welcome to post your questions in the chat box at any time during the session. Toward the end, we will randomly select some of the questions within the time premises and direct them to our speakers. If you experience any technical issues, please try reconnecting via the original link or connect our team throughout the chat. As mentioned earlier, I'm Amit Shuna, Senior Archivist at the National Archives of Maldives. I've had the privilege of working with archival collection and reflect the rich, diverse history of our island nation. My current focus is on ensuring that our effort in preserving keep peace with the challenges of physical preservation of documents and digital transformation. So it's truly an honor to facilitate this discussion today. We are very pleased to be joined today by two distinguished panelists who bring invaluable global and local perspective on this conversation. First, we have Dr. David Cherata. Dr. David is a world-renowned expert in digital preservation, having dedicated his work to the field since 1990 and leading many significant developments. He played a fundamental role in shaping the OAIS reference model ISO 14721, chairing the panel that produced these standards for building digital archives and leading both its 2012 and current updates. Furthermore, Dr. David leads the group responsible for the ISO 16363 standard for the audit and certification of trustworthy digital repositories. He is also a prolific author with his latest book, Thinking Digital Preservation, published in 2022. His contributions have been recognized with the Emmett Leathy Award in 2012 for outstanding contribution to the information and records. Joining him is Dr. Ibrahim Muhammad. Dr. Ibrahim is an accomplished environmental climate change adaptation expert, having extensive experience in governance and institutional reform within the Maldives. His career includes significant leadership roles, having served as Deputy Director General at the Environmental Protection Agency EPA and as an Assistant Director and Environmental Analysis at the Ministry of Environment. His specialization lies in climate change adaptation for small low-lying island nations. Currently, Dr. Ibrahim serves as an environmental social safeguard specialist at the Ministry of Finance. We are honored to have both of you with us today. Thank you for taking the time to join this conversation. Uh, for the opening question, I would like to request Dr. David. Uh, let's begin by clearing up a common misunderstanding. Many assures that once a document is digitized, it is preserved. Could you please clarify what is the real difference between digitization and digital preservation?
Oh, hey, yes, thank you, Shu, and thank you and your colleagues for inviting me. I think the work you're doing in the Maldives is extremely valuable, and I'm always glad to do whatever I can to help. So, yeah, you're right. It is a common misconception that I hear, and the truth is that digitization is just the first step, sometimes an essential step, but I can describe the difference quite easily. So, digitization, typically you take a piece of paper, which actually might have been sitting on a shelf, neglected for decades, maybe a century, and you scan it in and produce basically a file, ones and zeros. Now, I think we're all led into a false sense of security because these days we expect to sort of click on a file and it opens and something magic happens. It displays a page. It allows you to print a page, or maybe it'll be uh, an audio file, an audio tape that you've digitized, and it plays music or plays a video. But what we tend to forget very quickly is how much has to happen behind the scenes. In fact, most of us just have no idea what happens behind the scenes. But there are usually very large companies taking a lot of effort to keep us focused on their products, but they only support their products as long as it makes them money. Uh, but these magic things, it's often referred to as things happening auto-magically. Um, uh, they have not always worked. And those few of us attending here who are, you senior, um, may remember before there were things you could click on. Maybe you had to type in words, and things would just not be so convenient. But coming back to these digital objects that are created by digitization, it's not. I have files that are, for example, word perfect, which are extremely difficult to open. I have text files. Oh, there's a message saying I can't hear anything. Can people hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think the technical team can.
Okay, I'll just press on. So there are lots
Yeah.
of there are lots of files. Okay, there are lots of files, digital objects that where what used to work in the past no longer works. So we cannot just rely on digitization. And that brings in digital preservation because what that is about is making sure that it's not just the bits, it's the information that's I think of it as information being trapped inside these bits, and it's really encoded within the bits. And digital preservation is trying to make sure that over the years, no matter what happens, that information can be released from these bits. And digital preservation, well, people often say, well, all you need is metadata. Well, to be honest, I find that people usually get very confused when they talk about metadata.
I think we have
The
lost
real,
connection.
oh, I can see you.
You're
Can you
back now.
hear me?
It's
Oh,
glitching. Yeah.
oh. Um, well, I'll just continue. I don't,
Yeah. Yes, please.
um, so the key trick is to know what different types of metadata are needed for digital preservation and how much of each. And I'll come back to that. And I should also say that some people confuse backup with digital preservation. So backup is
Mm.
needed because things break and it's just temporary, and you're going to put things back to the fixed hardware, and it's going to be the same hardware for the same people. Digital preservation is needed because things change. We all know that things just inevitably change, and what digital preservation needs to do is to make sure that the information that's trapped in those bits can be used in new, different systems and for different people. So that's my summary of the difference. Oh, and the other thing, of course, is once you get things in bits, you need to be extremely careful about
Mm.
authenticity. So I'll stop there. I don't want to go on for too long.
Thank you for the clarification. Next question is to Dr. Ibrahim. We live in one of the world's most climate vulnerable nation. In your view, how do environmental threats like rise in sea, saltwater intrusion, or floods impact the preservation of records, both physical and digital?
Thank you for this opportunity. I hope you all can hear me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so as we all know, the climate change is intensifying a lot of natural disasters that we are facing now. For example, flooding, coastal erosion, like you mentioned. And in future, these impacts will be exacerbated and we will face more consequences related to this. And we often think we are very safe, but it is the unknown effects, like, we will not be able to predict certain impacts as quickly as we would like to. That's why we have lots of strategies for disaster management as well. So at challenging times like these, we may be losing our records, like, for example, if it is in paper, the damages could be extensive due to rain or flooding or other issues. And also due to climate change, we are also getting, more pests and insects. And as you know, a lot of pests and insects also attack these historic documents and other materials that we are keeping in certain conditions. And also with the impact of climate change, we will we will not be able to maintain them at a proper condition. For example, a lot of electronic equipment will be, damaged by very high temperatures, and we are now experiencing these kind of high temperatures, even though we don't in our living rooms we might be putting air conditioners, but for a place where we are storing these kind of materials, we may not be investing in these kind of equipments or facilities. So these impacts are quite severe. So we need to
Mhm.
climate proof our storage and the way we maintain and keep our records and data as well. And also, the only loss is not just data. We also have a lot of historical artifacts and also other tangible and intangible heritage as well, which we may be losing due to climate change impacts. For example, some of the islands, the cemeteries, which are quite historically important, significant cemeteries where burial of people have been going on for many, many years, we may be losing this as well. And also due to climate change, we may be moving from one island to other island, as well as we might be moving from a affected area to a safe shelter. So during this movement also we may be losing a lot of records or data as well. So we may think we will not be, we have spaces, we have buildings, but all these are vulnerable to disasters. We have seen this as well. So let's continue more with other questions. I think this is enough for the time.
Yeah, yeah, for the time. Thank you. Dr. David, my next question is that one of the key models guiding digital preservation globally is the OAIS framework, right? For our audience, can you explain what OAIS is and why it's important for building trustworthy long-term digital archives?
Yes, thank you for the question. So, of course, I am a little biased, but
Uh-huh.
it it has OAIS has or is referenced by essentially every system that is concerned with digital preservation and any work that's done in this area. So OAIS is kind of a foundation stone on which other standards are built. It's a reference model. It
Mhm.
stands for the Open Reference Model for Open Archival Information Systems. So open, really, because of the way it was developed, it
Mhm.
applies to anything, whether it's secret, closed archives, um,
Mhm.
archival. It's very straightforward. Information is the key word. That's
Mhm.
what we focus on. So as I said before, it's not just the bits, it's the information that's trapped in the bits that needs to be preserved. The bits by themselves become useless. It's the information, and the system points to the fact that it's not just a piece of software, not a piece of hardware. It involves both of those and people. So that's a system we talk about. So I don't have
Mhm.
time to explain the details, but the key point that you need to remember
Mhm.
is OEIS was designed to be testable, and
Mhm.
what it does, and it's the test is based on the usability in a way that's defined in the archive, for example, usability of the information that's encoded in those bits that are being preserved. So that could be displaying the document, playing the music, using the scientific data file, but actually even in something as simple as a document, which you think, I've just digitized it, it's okay. I mean, there are some important things like what's the language? What's the special terminology? Why is that piece of text red? I mean, all of those things are important. They're obvious at the moment, but maybe we need to add metadata to make that information understandable. And that's the other thing that OEIS does. I said that you need to know the types of metadata that are absolutely essential and how much. And that's what OEIS guides you to, that defines those precise types, and how you know whether you've got enough. And it provides a lot of other concepts and very clear terminology so you can think about and compare archives. And on top of OAIS, we built, for example, 16363, which allows archives to be audited and certified. So I hope that's clarified why it's important, and that important thing about being testable. It's the fundamental basis.
I know you can speak about OAIS for like 2 hours.
Oh no,
Yesterday you have
days,
told us.
days.
Uh, yeah, for days. Okay. But I have one last question about this. How does OAIS can help institutions like the National Archives design a reliable and auditable system for digital preservation?
Well, I think what, as I said, OAIS is about
Mm,
testability. So the way it can be used to help, in particular, the National Archives, is to allow people to think very clearly about what's needed. And as I'll maybe mention, have the opportunity to mention later, to elicit that metadata of the specific sorts from those who currently understand what's encoded in the bits. But the
mhm,
other thing that OEIS is important for is that, and again, maybe I'll have an opportunity to say more about this, is that uh, a lot of people try to or will try to mislead you if they're trying to sell
mhm,
you a system. And if you hang on to the key concepts of OEIS, it allows you to judge whether what you're being told is true or not about
mhm,
these systems, whether it's sensible to buy this system or that system, or to do this thing or that other thing. There are too many misleading pieces of information out there. And in terms of auditability, well, if an archive follows and understands OEIS, then that leads directly into the most important audit standard, which is ISO 16363, often referred to
mhm.
as the gold standard of certification and the badge of trustworthiness of archives in terms of preserving the information that the archive is entrusted with. So again, I better stop there to allow time for other questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. David. Now, my next question is for to Dr. Ibrahim. We have witnessed serious threats to our public memory here in Maldives, from the 2004 tsunami to the last year green building fire, which reportedly caused major data loss. What lessons do these incidents teach us about the risk of losing valuable records in disasters, and how might data loss in such cases directly affect vulnerable populations or long-term development goals? Uh, Dr. Ibrahim, could you please put the mic on?
Sorry, yeah. Indeed, we have had these unfortunate situations. And it's very sad that at the time our Minister for Housing mentioned that all the historical data and project related files were completely irreversibly lost during this process, this disaster, we should call it, yeah. So this shows that an incident like this could have irreversible damage and loss of data, and which we will never be able to recover. This is very sad because this has a lot of implications. For example, not only we lost data on environmental, biodiversity, ecology, and other aspects, we have also lost data on finance, legal aspects, people's identity, people's housing related registrations, and many data which will be very difficult to recover. And also this will have legal issues, legal battles to be fought, because if these documents are lost, people can sue the authorities, and a lot of legal implications is also there. On the other hand, if we lose data on important species, important ecosystems, protecting these species might be challenging. So there is a lot of sensitive data which we might have lost, and we will have many issues. Also, as you are aware that the Environment Ministry also imposes fines for environmental damage, and also loss of species or ecosystems. So, for example, if any documents related to these fines, such as the assessments on damage, is lost, then we might not be able to have a legal case or proceed with the legal case in this process as well. So it is not about loss of historical data, but or administrative records, which is having an impact from this. But there are very you know concerning kind of impacts which we might be facing for many generations as well, because we might have lost and we will not be able to recover some of this data.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. As a reminder to everyone, please feel free to send in your questions using the chat box. We will try our best to address as many as possible in the when the time comes for the question answer segment. And you can start posting now itself. Yeah, my next question is for it's to Dr. David. The National Archives of Maldives recently launched a digital preservation project with support from the government. From your experience, how important is it to and standards like OAIS and best practices at the very start of the initiatives?
Yeah, that's yeah, very good question. Now, of course, again, I'm somewhat biased because I have been involved in this, but I have, honestly speaking, I've been so impressed by the commitment of the people at the National Archives to preserving what they hold, and what the importance of OEIS. I've been thinking about this, and I mentioned before that there are many misleading statements um, that especially vendors make, and you may wonder, how do they get away with this? And the reason is that what their systems do is just about adequate to preserve documents. So we talked about scanning in pieces of paper, producing a document, and pretty well most systems are just about okay. Although, for example, the the archives using those systems will not be able to tell you necessarily what the language is or why that piece of text is colored red or the special terminology, but it's accepted that it's just about okay. But um, we did. The National Archives undertook a survey, and in fact, Dr. Ibrahim mentioned many of the sorts of pieces of information that were lost that needed to be preserved. And there is just so many different types that are not simply uh, things printed on paper. There are databases, there are spreadsheets with formulae in, there are there's medical information that we really rely on, and our doctors will need in 20, 30, 40 years. And that's the current systems are not, or many of these systems are not adequate to preserve those things. So that's why OEIS is important, because it provides the concepts and indeed the questions that need to be asked in order to be sure that the Maldives National Archives is set up from the beginning to be able to preserve all of this different sort of information. Of course, it has to preserve documents, but bear in mind what I said about special terminology and so forth. It needs to capture that extra, if I can use the word, type of metadata. And by focusing on OEIS and systems that fully support it, the National Archives will be able to be successful in their task of preserving. And if I can just take a couple more minutes, I did say that most of the commercial systems are uh, misleading in what they say about OEIS. They all refer to it, but they are misleading. Now, the system that is being used in the digital preservation project, I have some experience of. So again, you may say I'm biased, but I do know that the software d- does support a repository outside the Maldives, which is certified according to ISO 16363. So that gives me confidence to think that this underlying software that they're getting at the moment for free as a to help set things up will be adequate to provide full support for OEIS, eventually be allow the Maldives National Archives to be 16363 certified and look after this huge variety of information that the ones I've mentioned and the ones that Dr. Ibrahim mentioned. Um, so uh, the other advantage of the digital preservation project as it stands is that it is a good system. In order to be sustainable, it's not just the software; it's the staff who are extremely good, but they do need to build up their own expertise, um, and they need to work with other organizations in the Maldives if they're going to preserve their information, because it's not a question of just giving the bits to the National Archive. It's all of that, if I can use the word metadata, of all this very specific types and enough of each specific type in order to allow the National Archives to preserve things. But in terms of sustainability, I mean, it does cost money, but I think it's important for the National Archives to make it clear that this will eventually save money. Yeah, and
Mhm.
Dr. Abraham just gave some great examples of savings in terms of threats which can be avoided, but also being able to add value, because sometimes the information is in silos. The National Archive, um, in its preservation activities and with the systems it is developing, I think should be able to provide real added value to help sustain or provide the resources needed to sustain its preservation efforts. So I better stop there, but I get very enthusiastic about this, as you can tell.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. David. We strongly value your advice given. Yeah, my next question is to Dr. Before I go further, there is one question. What's the phrase metadata may not be familiar to some participants. Please provide some examples. Thank you. Because before we go further, I thought, uh, Dr. David, could you please just highlight, say a few words
Yeah,
about
yes,
metadata? What is it?
yeah, sure. I mean, fundamentally, you have a digital object, for example, um, and you need some some. Okay, I'll use the word metadata, but you need
Yeah.
some additional stuff about that in order to be able to preserve it and use it. So examples are, okay, I've got this file. Um, I need to know its format. So that's one type of metadata. It's and it's one aspect of the types of metadata that are needed. But I also need to know something about, I mentioned language, or special terminology. So that's semantics, about what's in that digital object. I may need to know what software is needed to be able to use that piece of medical data that's in a proprietary format. So those are some of the types of metadata, but other types are, I need the provenance. Where did it come from? Is it actually authentic? I mean, for a piece of paper, I might be able to, tell its age and so forth. But digital stuff, how do I know where it's come from? What's been done to it? Has it been changed? So all of that, all of those things are types of metadata. And as I say, OEIS identifies those absolutely critical types of metadata that are needed for successful preservation. Does that answer the question? You're muted, Hugh.
Thank you, Dr. David. Um, My next question is to Dr. Ibrahim. From a climate resilience perspective, what is the value of oral histories and citizen contributed records in a nation like the Maldives, where communities are directly affected by rising seas and other environmental changes?
Thank you. You know, in our island cultures, oral traditions and passing knowledge
Mhm.
through oral traditions is very common. And one very good example of this is our Nake Almanac, which is actually a calendar based on historic oral traditions on weather patterns. So this is a very important calendar passed on from or passed mainly through oral traditions, and to somewhat it is also archived and written also in books as well, in the old books as well. So this data is based on the lived experiences of our ancestors on how the monsoonal patterns and weather patterns have been changing at different times, at different uh, seasonal variations, how what kind of oceanographic changes or wind patterns or rainfall patterns, how it is changing. So now we know that due to climate change impacts, we are now able to compare this important information, historic understanding and historic data with the current changes in rainfall and wind and other weather patterns, and understand how climate change is impacting our weather patterns. So this is very important again to be preserved. And fortunately, we have preserved this in a way through oral traditions as well as some written documents. But we need to again, like David mentioned, we need to again digitally archive this in a proper way for future generations. And the other thing is we also have intangible heritage like our skills which we passed from our ancestors to their future generations, like boat building, mat weaving, cloth weaving, and also a very important thing is the old traditional libas or dress worn by our women, which is used in a very unique pattern of embroidery, which is not even found in South Asian countries. So we have this very important traditional knowledge which we need to be passed down as well. So for our resilience, we need to also know about how in the past we have built our homes, what kind of materials we used, whether these materials we can improvise and use better, because we are now in a situation where building materials are very costly, very damaging to the environment due to extraction, and also cement and sand is also very having a huge impact on the environment, as well as also it contributes to global warming through higher emissions. So we need this historic knowledge to be passed on, the historical understanding, as well as other things like ecology, the type of fish we have been catching, the movement of fish during different seasons. There are a lot of orally passed traditions, intangible, tangible heritage, which we need to preserve. We can talk at length about this, and this historic information is very important for our adaptation. You might also have heard that our ancestors were growing the millets, and we now know that millet is one of the best food crops for climate change related impacts, because it is disease resistant, it grows quickly, it is very nutritional as well. And our ancestors have been growing this and using this, but we have now lost this knowledge. I mean, uh, many of our farmers won't know how to grow this anymore. What kind of where can we find the seeds and how to process? So this kind of knowledge is very important to adapt to our changing conditions, especially related to climate change and other disasters. Thank you.
I really thank you, Dr. Ibrahim. I really like the examples that you pick in your conversation. Well, I think now I have, before we move on to the audience questions, I have a pivot question to both panelists. Uh, what's one message you would leave with our audience today, something you believe in crucial to protecting the Maldives' memory and resilience in the face of climate change? Uh, Dr. David, could you please?
Yeah, yes, I'd be very happy to. Um, well, the, again, I may be accused of being biased, but I honestly think that the National Archives is the crucial resource needed to preserve the Maldivian society in terms of health, finances, governance, and history. And I mentioned previously that um, we carried out a survey that identified the volumes and the many types of uh, digitally encoded information that uh, the Maldives actually does rely on now and into the future. Um, so I think what's needed is for the National Archives to explain its plan for doing this to the politicians and the public, showing its importance for the future and also its relevance to the day-to-day activities of the Maldives. And I'll just take the opportunity to say I think there's a very good start has been made, but it does need to be supported and continued, and uh, you and be able to interact and get
Mhm.
in order for it to successfully preserve the information. So I'll stop there.
Yes, Dr. Ibrahim.
Yes, what I want to mention is that uh, uh, one of the very important aspects of climate change is also on climate monitoring, because we are all our justifications on global warming. There are a lot of skeptics also about climate change. So the only way we can actually debunk this is using data, and we know that climate is changing. And if we don't have data, we will have major consequences on our identity, our development, and our resilience, because all this depends on data. And also, as I mentioned, you other tangible, intangible heritage related to our skills, the way we have lived, our culture, all these things. For example, suppose we are leaving, we are abandoned in an island. This has been happening due to many reasons. One might be because of climate change related impacts or livability. What if we, in the future, we want to know what how people have lived on this island? If all the generation which moved passed away, we will not have any knowledge on the island's culture, the island's environment, anything. But now we have virtual reality where we can actually go and live in the past using virtual reality. We can go to the past, but we need data. We need photographs. We need a lot of data on how people have lived on an island. So we can actually dive into the past with this data. And this is the beauty of data. So this is what I want to tell. So climate is changing. We might be facing a lot of consequences. We might have to move.
Mm.
We don't know. uh, if God forbids, I mean, in 200 years we might not have Maldives also. So how will our future generations know how Maldives was like? Thank you. So this is a question I want to finish off with.
Thank you very much, Dr. David and Dr. Ibrahim, for your insightful contributions and reflections. We now have some time set aside for the questions from the audience, and I can already see a number of thoughtful ones coming right through the chat. Um, let's start with the question we have selected from the audience. Yes, Shadia from Pension Office. Her question is, how secure are the data saved or stored in the cloud or other online platforms? Is there any possibility of losing such data due to any type of disaster?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, yes, please.
Um, well, this is a really, really good question. So
Mm,
um, I think it's yet to be tested. So I mean, the cloud has, cloud providers have many options. So you can just put your information in one region, or you could say it has to be spread in separate regions on different continents. Um, one, but the fundamental thing is what happens if, despite everything, you lose in that information? And the answer is that if you look at the contracts in the fine print, it'll probably say they'll give you, those terabyte space empty, but for free for the next few months. They attach no value to your your information. So I I'm always we are wondering how to audit these things. But I think there are a number of strategies. So one is to use not just one cloud provider, but two. So keep your data information in not just Amazon, but also Google, and maybe keep another copy, maybe offline, locally, or some third location. So I think it's a really good question. A lot of people are thinking very hard about this. Uh, it's obviously convenient, but we do have to be extremely careful because, as far as I've seen, there is no way that the cloud providers will make an absolute guarantee that the data will not be lost. Although, to put it into context, bear in mind what we know about our own systems. It Cloud systems are almost certainly safer than keeping it locally,
mm,
because they have very expensive RAID disks. If one piece of hardware fails, they put in another. They have virtual machines to keep things running. So it is much safer than keeping it on your desktop, but it's still not perfect.
mhm.
And of course, the other thing is it's kind of out of your control. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
thank you.
helps, but
Yeah, thank you, Dr. David. I will go to the next question. We have a three-level preservation approach: bit level, which deals with ones and zeros; logical preservation, which deals with format and policies; and then semantic preservation, which deals with the data itself, how it is used, and metadata to describe it. My question is, since the certification is only on an implementation, not just the software, how can you hold accountable a vendor of a digital preservation system? I think Dr. David can focus on this question, please.
uh, yes, yeah, another really, really good question. I mean, first of all, if I were you, I'd change your terminology, um, because you're probably following a vendor's terminology, and that will always
Mhm,
tend to mislead you. So, but in answer to your question, yeah, the certification is about the whole system. It's the people, have you got the right staff, and as well as what capabilities the software provides. So can you hold a vendor accountable? Well, um, the ultimate accountability is that if the vendor is not, if their software is not adequate, then the only thing you can do is to change vendor. So first of all, as they say, a long journey starts with the first step. And so what you need to do before choosing the vendor, you need to ask the right questions and not be misled by what they say. For example, OEIS defines what's called an archival information package.
Mhm.
All vendors claim to produce those things. Almost all are lying. I mean, and that's just unfortunately the truth. Now, the
Mhm.
critical thing about archival information packages is that they were defined in order to make sure that obviously systems are going to change, software is going to change. You need to be able to capture everything needed to preserve this piece of information and hand it on or put it into the next system, whether it's just an upgrade of the system or a new software from a different vendor or some homegrown software. Now, if you've got proper archival information packages, that's great. If you do not, because that software does not produce archival information packages,
Mhm.
then there can be trouble, but you can take steps to bypass that by simply um, not believing their terminology. That's why terminology and understanding is important. Your actual
Yeah.
archival information package is what the vendor provides plus or what the vendor calls an archival information package plus the extra information that you know is needed in order to preserve. So I have to be very short in my answer, but
Yeah.
that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Change provider. That's the threat.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. David. We are already running out of time, but one last question, very, very shortly, Dr. Ibrahim, could you please, here's one question. What would your recommendation to the academic community and universities?
Very good question. We are now experience. We are now. We might have seen in the news the UN Ocean Conference, and the Maldives is playing a very crucial role. And I'm thinking, a lot of what we are advocating for is related to data. But do we have an Indian Ocean portal of data where we can get access, academicians, students, citizen science? How much can we contribute to such a system? How can we utilize such data on, gathered through various sources like satellite data, data measured and monitored through monitoring equipments kept in the ocean, data on biodiversity, which we collect through various surveys. So the idea is that, we have to have accessibility, and also we have to have these kind of information portals or on various sources where academics can easily accessibly use this data and produce new knowledge and new research and add value to this. That's what I can say in short.
Yeah, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that brings us to the end of our question and answer segment. We want to thank everyone who submitted the questions, and we regret that we couldn't get all of them today. But I've noticed one interesting questions came up very lately. But however, we couldn't attend to all the questions. Before we conclude, I would like to briefly summarize today's key takeaways. We heard about the urgent need to preserve Modi's cultural heritage in the fact of environmental threats. We explored how digital archives can ensure long-term preservation, broader accessibility, and greater resilience. And we were reminded of the virtual role that communities, educators, researchers, and policymakers must all play in making archives truly accessible for everyone. On behalf of the National Archives of Maldives, I want to extend our deepest thanks to our two distinguished panelists, Dr. David and Dr. Ibrahim, for sharing their time and expertise with us today. We also thank each and everyone who joined us from across Maldives and beyond. We hope this conversation has sparked interest, awareness, support for digital preservation in island nations like ours. Please continue to follow our work through our website and social media. We encourage you to engage, share, and support the journey towards accessible, resilient archives. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thanks again for the opportunity